All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Darryl Uchima. I'm from Boeing Satellite Space Intelligence Systems, and I'm here to talk about our 3-year journey implementing critical chain and kind of the lessons learned along those 3 years. And one of the things we've uncovered in the past 3 years is really the importance or what the role is of leadership as far as getting the results and getting the success you need by implementing critical chain. All right, first let's talk about who we are and as far as the big company called Boeing. So Boeing, of course, very large corporation, really divided into 2 major businesses, commercial airplane, and everybody's heard about the 787. We're very excited about that launch next year and where it's headed. And that's really half the business, the commercial airplane business based in Seattle. But we are part of the defense business, and the defense business about 70,000. Oh, this is going to be fun. About 70,000 employees nationwide and worldwide. You can see the revenues about $32 billion in 2006. Where we fit in with the IDS defense side of the business is we're part of network and space systems. That's about a half of the business in IDS. And inside of network and space systems, you can see us space intelligence systems. So we're the space side of the defense business, about 8,000 employees nationwide, and we're headquartered in Seal Beach, California. We do both government and commercial satellites. As you can see, the pictures very diverse in satellite configurations, and that is a norm. On the left-hand corner, you can see Thuraya. That's a large mobile-to-mobile satellite system. Telephone, XM radio, most of you heard about. That's a satellite-to-vehicle type of application. DirecTV, which we kicked off at Hughes many years ago. That's most of you know that's a satellite-to-home as far as television goes, weather satellites. So you can see the diversity of the different type of vehicles. One thing very difficult, very high non-recurring business. We build at the most 2 or 3 of any one of these satellites. So high percentage of non-recurring. There really isn't a production volume. It's really a prototype type of design and manufacturing. Very expensive to launch. Most of these satellites are 15 years in mission. Of course, it's very difficult, impossible. You really can't go up there and service it. Okay, now, where do I fit in with the satellite picture? I'm a director in Space Intelligence Systems. I deliver the antennas, or the antennas that go onto the spacecraft, both government and commercial. So I have both engineering and manufacturing. I manage both internal builds as well as procurements and deliver all those antennas to all the government and commercial programs that you see. Usually, most of the satellite programs, the major constraint was my organization. So the antennas we delivered onto the spacecraft was really the constraint of the whole satellite production across the major programs. And our big major problem at that time was something we called reflectors, or it's the satellite dish that reflects the signal off the antenna for the big dishes you see on the ground. Those are what we call reflectors on the spacecraft. And we were having a huge problem with those reflectors. In fact, we had a major technical issue on one program. We had to scrap all the complete chipsets of that program and rebuild it on top of another program. That's where we are. We had so much attention at that time. Harry Stonecipher, the then CEO of Boeing, actually was giving us comments and instructions on what we should do next. And that's exactly where you don't want to be if you're in the satellite business. So one of the issues is how we were going to overcome that problem and keep our delivery schedules. One thing I didn't mention, the commercial business is really difficult, where the termination defaults if you're late is a complete cancellation of the entire contract. So if you don't make it on time, you will lose that entire satellite contract value, which is not trivial. We actually, in a 6 or 8 month time period, we pulled it through. I mean, the team at the time, before we implemented, Rich Luxford here, he was the program manager at the time, every single day it came to me, there was a different critical path, there was something else to work on, the team was scrambling in 1,000 different directions. And then when we implemented the pipeline and hand it to him. I think he felt like, you could talk to him later, but I think he felt like a general where he knew what things were going on. Bottom line, we doubled the throughput. We delivered both programs in the same amount of time as it would take to do one. We improved the cycle time about 30%. More importantly, after this event, we actually broke the constraint. Reflectors no longer constrained all the antenna deliveries, and within a year, all the antennas was not the constraint of the satellites. So at the reflector level, at the antenna level, all the way to the satellite level, we kind of broke the constraint at the enterprise level. Big, big change. So at that time, I think Kevin Naya and Charles Toops and I said, wow, this is powerful stuff. We can do something with this. So we immediately set out to try to help the entire organization. He pulled all the executives together, and today I think there's about 50 of us in the audience, very senior program managers and leadership of the organization. And we rolled it out to the whole organization and really put it in motion. Took kind of Sanji's step implementation and moved out. So that's what we did in 2005, kind of try to spread it across the entire organization. Meanwhile, back in my organization, not only did we break the constraint and increase throughput and capacity, we got to the point where we actually could do more. And around the 2006 timeframe, besides antennas, my organization got bigger. So more accountability came in. We added some microwave units in the payload and the payload design itself and the integration and test. And through that period, we actually didn't grow. In fact, today, I think my organization size is still the same as it was when we just had antennas. So we actually pulled on more accountability and then took Concerto, put that into use, and moved it out on our programs. With that, we even brought it to our government and some of the government classified programs. One of them had a very difficult time with stabilizing cost and schedule, and we really turned that around. A lot of awards to that team this year, in fact, as far as not just holding their cost commitments, but actually returning money quarter by quarter. I think it's 3 or 4 quarters in a row that program has returned money. A lot of positive feedback back from the end customer. It showed about a 64% improvement from the first spacecraft to the second, and then about a 30% improvement from the second to the third. So really, the first spacecraft, we did not implement critical chain. In fact, we were pretty selective on where we applied critical chain as far as focusing on where it counted the most. The second spacecraft will definitely implement it with Concerto and then the large reductions over time. So bottom line, a lot of successes throughout the organization and the company with critical chain implementation.
Boeing.
What we do down here in AIT is we assemble, integrate, and test antenna systems. Good morning.
Hey guys. Morning.
Gil, we got everybody in today?
Yeah. The morning meeting really ensures that all the technicians and the management knows exactly what's happening for the day.
The morning meetings are to get us, from last night's crew, to tell us what's going on for the rest of the day for us, what they did and what we need to do.
And then we have a daily checklist that kind of tells us exactly what we got to do for the day. And we just follow that plan, and it just seems to go real smooth.
And if there's any issues or they need any help, we can go ahead and identify them early, get them resolved, and get them working that much quicker.
With theory of constraints, that is a tool that we use to understand what our critical resource is. Our dolly and associated tooling is that critical resource. We only have one, it's very expensive, and so as a result of that, we've had to build up our assembly and test plans around that single item. We have seen a very tremendous effort from management to get engaged. We've got great floor leadership. We've got fantastic technicians on the floor performing the work. So everything has really come together.
It clearly shows that if you go and address the project management aspects as well as the execution and planning, that you can go ahead and achieve huge results.
one problem. We were seeing fever charts and performance in critical chain applications, or so-called critical chain applications, that looked more like the launch vehicles shooting up into orbit than the satellites we were building at the time. So it really puzzled us when we saw dramatic improvements in some areas and others exactly the opposite. We saw charts like this, or actually even more schizophrenic fever charts, but both had the same result, launching into orbit. So one question is, why was this going on? So this was within my organization as well as outside, and we went to the project teams and kind of with a buffer recovery thread, what's going on with these projects? What we found with most of the teams, instead of focusing on buffer recovery, they mostly talked about why some other organization or supplier or requirements was causing the bad performance, why some other area was impacting their project, and they just could not get on track because of that across the board. So with that in hand, we dug further and investigated why was this happening. Okay, so here's a chart I pulled from Sanjeev's presentation, I believe at the Realization Conference in 2005. Kind of his 8 steps of implementation. We thought we were doing well. We thought we were going 1 through 8. We're going one by one. We're implementing, trying to be wise men. Number 4 says, design the solution, project resource model, policies, and processes. First problem we found, starting out of the gate, is any large company, definitely our company, uses something we call standard deck. That is the 80% confidence schedule. That's a report to our customers, earn value, finances that report to the corporation, you name it, whether it's dealing with risk or risk mitigation activities. Everything is set. It is flowed from the programs to our customers, to the corporation, and through the program teams. That's what we call a standard deck. We found that in execution, where those critical chain projects were having problems, the program or project teams were still using the standard deck. So all of us, I think, went through the AJ, what do we call it? Vicious cycle, I think is what we call it. And know what's definitely death with critical chain implementations is to use our 80 or 90% commitment milestones and drive it in execution. That's what we found on a lot of these project teams. So problem number 1, we weren't changing our behavior. We were still flowing down the standard deck all the way to the working level. They were using it. They had their separate Microsoft schedules on the side, still managing to dates. Behavior wasn't changed. They weren't working to Concerta or CCPM plan. So one thing was to change, make sure we had good plans, but make sure we divorce the reporting standard deck from the critical chain execution. So with that in hand, were we okay? The answer is still not yet. So Manuel talked last year, this is your chart from Chicago, and he stressed the importance of the task manager in execution. And it just hit a bell in me when he presented that last year. I think I talked to you after you pitched. And the separation of the project manager role and the task manager role, and really leveraging that task manager for the execution side of critical chain. And that really hit a nerve on what we weren't doing on a lot of those projects. So, armed with that, we do know the right behaviors we need, right? And who's the one that makes sure the priority's set? Who's the one that's making sure we're prepping for the next task? We're not starting before we're ready. So who's setting that tone? It's usually the task manager. That was definitely a missing element. Besides that, I talked about buffer management, something I think Bill learned when he went to Warner Robins, who's speaking today. And that was also missing. So who is driving the buffer management thread at the leadership level, at the project level, at the task manager level? Also missing. So the thing we found was, hey, we have to embed the roles and the behaviors to get the execution embedded in our programs. And it wasn't there. And the way to do that was actually engaging. The leadership's got to get engaged. The leadership just can't buy into the concept, roll it out, have the tool done, have our plans in place, and expect everything to change overnight. Won't happen. Or you get lucky, you get pockets of success. So that's what we discovered, hey, we got to get our leadership engaged. We got to embed the right execution roles. We got to change the way we're behaving to get the results we need. Those were evident in the successes we saw. They were not evident in where we didn't see it. So Bill and I, early this year, I think, took out, within just my organization, which I thought was going to be an easy thing, and since they kind of worked for me, and tried to reprioritize our leadership, or my leadership, to get the engagement we needed across our projects. I think we had 20-plus projects at the time. So I took them off-site for 2 days, and what I found that although my leadership was definitely involved in the creation, we knew the benefits, we understood what it took for successful implementation, didn't really need a lot of training, it wasn't a priority for them. And one by one, whether it was a technical issue we're resolving, a customer audit or government audit, or staffing critical skills, every one of them had a higher priority on their chart, on their list to do than implementing critical change. And the more we discussed it, the more information and data they wanted, and the more they resisted because it wasn't a priority. These are my leaders too, okay? So I found it wasn't a priority for leadership. And oh, by the way, everything they mentioned was true. Every manager that came to me and told them what their number one focus was correct. Whether it was staffing, was solving a technical issue, solving a root cause corrective action, every one of them, it was a definitely high priority, okay? So what Bill and I did was Bill's the one that constructed the conflict cloud, and we set out to break all these barriers. We thought we had to break these barriers to get moving forward. For the last 3 months or so, that's what we were doing until a couple months ago. But that's what we moved out on, and that became my second trap. So all of us as leaders understand we have priorities. If we prioritize what we're focusing on today, it's probably correct. Where would we put critical change in changing our behavior, getting our execution? It would probably not be number one. And you know what I realized? After working them for about 3 or 4 months, it never would be. Because the key priority on our list is a higher priority as far as what our leader's working on. So I realized, don't get caught in the trap in our TOC training, focusing only on whatever the highest priority is. It will inhibit implementing. It's kind of a catch-22, and therefore you don't get the increased performance you need, and then there's more problems, right? So don't get caught in the trap of trying to resolve all these barriers at the expense of not moving forward. So that's the other thing I realized. Hey, I had about 30 projects, and I've got 30 leaders. So it's not like I'm asking any one leader to drop everything and focus on implementation. So the change I made was, hey, every leader grab one project and sit with the team, including myself, and that's kind of what we're doing today. So instead of just buffer recovery meetings once a week that I've had with my programs, I took one of the programs, I think Jan Heidi's in the room, one of her programs, and I sat down with the team every day. And I sat with the project manager. More importantly, for the first time in a long time, I sat with the task managers. And boy, did I learn a lot. I learned what kind of information screening we get from our project managers when they report to us, and what's really going on as far as execution with our task managers. And it was an eye-awakening event, believe me. So getting our project managers online, making sure they have good plans, the task managers make sure they're clear on what their REAs are, and getting the behavior we need in execution. The other thing is, I don't know about your companies, but in Boeing, large company, a lot of processes and procedures, a lot of red tape. Amazing when you talk to the task managers, what gets in their way to get anything done in any given day. So in these daily meetings, talk to the task managers and try to kind of clear the path for them when there was big red tape obstacles, and it happened all the time. So that's kind of what we've moved forward on, getting all my leaders engaged, changing the performance appraisals, And you know, it really doesn't take a lot of time. Not at all. Took a while in the beginning when the project plan's wrong, and people got their secret Microsoft project schedules, and that's what they're managing too. It depends how much wrong behavior we have. Doesn't spend a lot of time. I spend 5 to 10 minutes with the team these days, every day. Longer if there's big Murphys that occur, or you know, depending what Murphys come up during the day. But everybody learns. The other thing I learned, by the way, is where to focus my lean processes, because we see all the anti-lean procedures that get in the team's way. But everybody learns from it, and immediate results happen. It's almost instantaneous, whether it's weeks, days, or weeks. Big change of when you focus on the right behavior. Okay?
Helping the team and the leadership learn good planning and execution behaviors. So these 7 points are kind of the key ones that I really ran across. First one, leadership has got to not just say, yeah, that looks really good, and then walk away from it. They have to engage, and they have to enforce the very simple policies. Once you do that, you will see change. And the two that are the most significant are get a good plan, that's my job, put it in Concerto, so now it's visible. When you're in the red, do something different. Just enforce that policy and behaviors will start to change. My personal frustration, which I'm still going through, is I work with teams to develop a very good network. At least I consider them pretty good because I question a lot. I build the network, get it in a Microsoft project, then I hand it back to them for validation. Bad idea. Sit down with the team again and validate it so you're done. Otherwise, the student syndrome sets in. And it's amazing. We have our buffer recovery meetings and our project reviews every Wednesday. It's amazing how many plans I get back Tuesday night in order to load up into Concerto so they can display it on Wednesday. The ultimate student syndrome. If you don't have a good plan, you can't execute very well. If the plan is broken, page me. I want you working off of the Concerto plan. Let me fix it for you. I don't want you changing plans, starting to go back to the old way of doing things. It's urgent, let me help you. Leaders must be engaged but must not take over. So I learned this through Daryl. Daryl got invested with the task managers. Leaders typically have A-type personalities. They want to direct. And when you tie that to technical expertise, they pretty much end up running the project. So you need to help them idle back as far as let the project managers run the project. Just make sure you're influencing their behaviors, not taking over. Because you certainly don't want them separate from the plans. They own the plans. Preparation and execution, it sounds simple, but the tendency for people is to work to dates, try and get started, and then figure out what they really need. So being positive in the daily meetings and helping them with the preparation and getting away from the dates is probably the most time-consuming. But once you get there and they start seeing the great performance, then the momentum just carries through. There are teams that I started a couple years ago I don't have to do anything with now. Make sure the bulldozer doesn't stall. When leadership engages, they are very good about saying, yep, we're here to help. And then some of the issues, especially the policies that the task managers run across, very difficult, very hard to deal with. And if leadership doesn't follow through, you're going to lose the momentum and morale's going to go down. So that's a very important thing that I keep reminding the leadership, you know what, you said you were going to take care of this, take care of it. And lastly, it's a learning process. In our department, or in our area, it's a subject matter expert. I'm more of an enthusiast than an expert. The realization folks are the experts. So I read a lot. I love going on plant trips. I brought back wonderful stuff from Warner Robins and HP, and do a lot of reading of white papers online. And Sanjeev and Ellie are wonderful resources.
Bill, 20 years in the business, master's in electrical engineering, was department manager in our organization, project lead on the organization. designed and led the most complex antenna builds, active arrays, and also certified Six Sigma black belt, lean expert, and CCPM. You add that all together, integrate into one individual, and it's a pretty powerful person to have. And without him, we definitely would not have gotten to where we are. But really important, combine a subject matter expert in the area with all those things. Really crucial for us, for our successes. Okay, my final takeaway and points. I mentioned Epiphany, the event that causes us to change our behavior. Whatever that signal was, whether it's reading a book, seeing something in action. One of our managers, Albert Alfaro, saw it when he took a tour. Whatever that signifies you to make that change needs to happen, Program management, definitely the shifting focus, executing and the micro, inch-stone, milestone schedules every day, reporting variance to meeting commitments on time, that change to critical change. A lot of people feel just because I've implemented in the tool, I've implemented critical chain. Absolutely not. In fact, that's a big danger. So many programs think, I've got it in, I'm operating that way. Leadership engagement, biggest thing we've learned, really important. Get engaged, doesn't take a lot of time, learn, engage with the team, help them, be that bulldozer. Really interesting when you get involved with the task manager, the lead that's actually getting the work done. A lot of lessons learned there. Pull the SME. Bill mentioned my tendency to take things over, manage myself, and actually do the project manager job, which is not what my role is. So get that SME, get the SME to coach all of your teams, or our teams. Makes a big difference. And as Bill said, provide the extra help to get through those really tough policies and barriers that the teams go through. It's amazing until you talk to the task manager what obstacles get in their way. So bottom line, my recommendation, all the leaders in the room, you want the results, get engaged. And don't have to take on everything. Take on just one project. Start with that. Let it move out. If you're a leader among leaders, get your whole leadership team engaged. Successes will happen very quickly. Pretty amazing, in fact. Dr. Goldratt talks about, I think he'll talk probably tomorrow, but he always talks about that meaningful life, right? And as a leader, probably, and I've been in the business now 25 years with Hughes and BOEING, and sometimes pretty tough times. I think the last 3 years has been the most, I've learned the most, ironically, in the same job for a long time. And I've felt that I've led the best in those 3 years. And it's really learning, applying, teaching. When you see results, you see the video that I showed you when the team actually has the change. And you see the performance behavior, you get the results, and they get the results. I think that's the big thing about being a leader, knowing that you've made that impact, made that difference. And it wasn't me directing the people, it was the people getting the results themselves. So I think that's the big key for all of us. For our company now, I mean, one of the reasons why I think we've got a large contingent here, I think about 50 of us are here, is we really realize the power. You know, we've always had the technical capability to design really complex satellites, design, manufacture, and deliver them. But we've never leveraged the integrated performance of the organization. So with this, I think we all feel, I definitely believe, the big discriminating thing we can bring to our business, the competitiveness, is increasing our throughput, decreasing our cycle time, huge leverage in the satellite business.